Happy Friday, coming off a winning day, and we got a huge 16 game slate. Let's talk some baseball. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back in to another episode for Just a Bet Outside. I am your host, Steven, and here we are, the last video until after the All-Star break. That is right. It's crazy. The time is absolutely flying. I'm still going to release some best bets over the weekend because there are games Saturday and Sunday. Again, they'll be on my post tab of our YouTube page on Discord, which is free to join, and on X, of course. So during the break, I'm just going to be diving into the NFL research and that season coming up. It's closer than I even think. It's crazy, but I'm looking forward to it. Maybe we can have a futures video or some sort of season preview video out before that season as well. But yesterday, finally, a winning day. Holy smokes, 2-1 should have been 3-0 easily. But either way, 2-1. We'll take winning day. We'll go over that recap in just a little bit. And of course, any graphics you see on this video, they are from an app called OUTLIER, the best betting research tool on the market today. Click that link below. You get a 7-day free trial. So let's get into it. And I got an MLB fun fact. You got to stay with me here. It's kind of a riddle one, but here we go. Madison Bumgarner, the lefty pitcher, if you don't know, he actually, as a hitter, had more grand slams than Prince Fielder, who had more inside the park home runs than Ricky Henderson, which is insane. Ricky Henderson had fewer steals of home plate than Babe Ruth, and Babe Ruth had as many shutouts pitching as Pedro Martinez. That is the riddle for you. They are all facts. So just want to share that. Anyways, in this video, we're going to recap yesterday, and then we're going to go over the good and bad hitter matchups, and then the best pitcher strikeout matchups, the full 16-game pitcher report, and we'll end it with the best bets and the recap. So hit that like button if you haven't already. Leave a comment below to help this channel continue to grow. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Come join this awesome community. We talk all things MLB, NFL, and NBA. But I'm ready to get it rolling, get that coffee ready, and that means it's recap time. All right, finally, a winning day. It has been a rough 3 days, but we will take this win. Mariners first 5 innings money line, easy winner there, but they blow the game. There's like the first time since the 70s where a team has been up by 5 or more runs in the 8th inning, while the team losing has 0 hits, and they still lose. It was just a Mariner fan. I can't even explain to you what it's like, but either way, we will take the winning bet. Brian Wu was excellent. And then we had Simpson, the rookie, and C.J. Abrams, 1+ hit each. They each got the job done on their first at bat. In fact, Simpson he reached on an error, and that ruling got changed to an infield single. Thank the heavens. We will take that win. Alternate team total parlay, guys. Rangers, easy win. D-backs, not easy, but they got 3 runs, and we lost by 1 run. That's right. We lost our 3-0 sweep because the Nationals got 1 run, not 2, 1 run. Miles Mikolas absolutely dominated them. In fact, in the last 3 days, in case you're wondering about how wild the All-Star break and the games before it are, Bryce Elder, Miles Mikolas, and there was someone else that just absolutely dealt in the last. Oh, Brandon Pfaadt. Those 3 guys in the last 2 days have dominated their last start. So it's baseball. It'll happen sometimes, but I cannot believe we lost the 3-0 sweep on the D-Juicer. But anyways, there's the overall record. As you guys know, we're digging out of that hole we just built ourselves the last few days, but down 10 units on the year about. There's a breakdown of everything, but that's what we got for the recap. Now let's talk the hitter matchups. We got 16 good hitter matchups for you today, starting with a couple Dodgers. Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts off Logan Webb, actually. Freeman, 14 for 40. Mookie Betts, 10 for 31. Then we got Ketel Marte. We got some big-time hitters here, 13 for 30. You see Simeon, Rosarena all the way down. Then you go over there to the right side. You know, we got some decent ones. How about Jose Iglesias down there? 6 for 8 with 2 extra base hits off the lefty, Ranger Suarez, and then we end it with Luis Arias over there as well. But a couple Blue Jays, Bo Bichette 3 for 9, and Vlad 4 for 12 off Luis Severino. So that's what we got for the good hitter matchups. Now let's take a look at the bad hitter matchups, and we got 10 of those for you, including getting jiggy with it, 5 for 27 with 7 Ks against Logan Webb. Springer has been swinging a hot bat, but 9 Ks and not been hitting Luis Severino well. Then you keep going down the list with Gleyber Torres. Over there on the right side, Eugenio Suarez, only 2 for 11 versus Tyler Anderson. Nothing crazy. And then Manny Machado, 2 for 11 with a couple Ks off Suarez. And Carson Kelly, the catcher for the Cubs, 0 for 10 with 5 Ks off of Carlos Rodon. So that's what we got for the hitter matchups. Now let's talk some Ks. We got 3 good pitcher strikeout matchups for you today, and we start with the rookie, the youngster, Chase Burns against the Rockies. Rockies, the highest K rate versus righties in the last 3 weeks. 27.9%. You can't have a better matchup. Burns, 15 Ks in 10 innings. So again, we're dealing with someone who has a very small sample size. In fact, in his 3 MLB starts, 8, 0, and 7 Ks. The 0 because he did not make it, I don't think, out of the first inning in one of his starts. But again, when he does go 4 or 5 innings, he can rack up the Ks, as you've seen the other two. He's made 2 road starts. He had the 0 and 7 Ks versus Philly and Boston, and 1 home start and 8 Ks versus the Yankees. Higher K rate versus righties so far, again, just 10 innings, but 33.3% compared to 28.6 against lefties. The second one, the man with 2 first names, Joe Ryan, against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Pittsburgh, third highest K rate versus righties at 24.2% in the last 3 weeks. Ryan, 116 Ks and 104.1 innings this year. And then Joe Ryan has 6+ Ks in 5 of his last 6. So been pretty consistent. A much higher K rate at home, which is where he is, 33.9%. And on the road, just 23. That's a pretty big difference there. Much higher K rate versus righties, also 24.7 compared to 21.6. 34.7 compared to 21.6 versus lefties. So again, this is a great matchup for Joe Ryan for Ks. But let's move on to the third and final one. That is Spiderweb against the Dodgers. Believe it or not, guys, well, maybe you can't believe it because the Dodgers keep losing, but the Dodgers' 4th highest K rate versus righties in the last 3 weeks, 24.1%. Webb, 133 Ks and 120.1 innings. He has 6+ Ks in 7 of his last 8 starts. Slightly lower K rate at home, 26.4 compared to 28% on the road. Not much difference there. And a much higher K rate versus righties, 30.1% compared to 23.9 versus lefties. So that's what we got for the pitcher strikeout matchups. Now let's take a look at the pitcher report. All right, here are the first 8 matchups, and we got Cabrera versus Dean Kramer. Cabrera been pretty solid lately. In fact, I've seen him in some trade rumors, but giving up 2 or less earned runs in 8 straight games now, 24.5% K rate there. And then Dean Kramer, in his last 6 starts, he had 3 starts where he gave up 4 to 5 earned runs, and the other 3, 1 or less earned run. Again, you're going to see this on a lot of pitchers. This is why it's hard to bet baseball, because pitchers are completely up and down, just like hitters. And then Chris Flexen for the Cubs against Carlos Rodon. Obviously, big advantage for the Yankees here. Flexen's not going to go deep into games. He's a bullpen guy now at this point of his career. But Rodon got absolutely shelled last start. 6 earned runs at the Mets. I know because I tailed Rodon, and then he sucked. Herman Marquez versus Chase Burns. Marquez coming off 11 hits and 6 earned runs allowed in his last start versus the White Sox. I mean, you got to be pretty bad to give up 11 hits against the White Sox. And then Burns, we talked about with the Ks. He did bounce back last start with 2 hits and 1 earned run versus the Phillies. But he still just went 4.2 innings on 91 pitches. So he's not a guy going 6-7 innings or anything right now. And then Luis Castillo versus Tariq Skubal. What do the Mariners get after being swept by the Yankees? They get a face. Tariq Skubal. Yay. Anyways, Castillo only given up 1 earned run over the last 13 innings. Been worse on the road, though, like we've talked about. And then Tariq Skubal, I mean, we know he's a stud. He gave up 3 earned runs on 6 hits, though, versus the Mariners on his second start of the year this year. So the Mariners have proven they got to him. I wouldn't hold your breath about that, but just want to let you know. But he has allowed 0 earned runs in 5 of his last 8. And then Rasmussen versus Dobbins. Drew, important because this is the deal here. Some of these pitchers are not going to be throwing a ton of pitches. Rasmussen, they wanted to limit his innings because he's coming off an injury and all that, and he's been used as an opener lately, which is absolutely crazy, but just something to keep in mind as we get closer to All-Star break. He only went 3 and 2 innings in his last 2 starts, so it's kind of crazy. But Dobbins, first start since June 20th when he gave up 4 earned runs versus the Giants. Not a great pitcher, obviously. And by the way, I didn't even mention this, but the RL, you guys asked for it. It was a great suggestion. That obviously means if they're a right-handed starting pitcher or a lefty, just to help you guys out. Meant to mention that at the beginning, but I completely forgot. But either way, now Kodai Senga versus Michael Wacha. Senga, first start in a month for him, threw 68 pitches in his last rehab start. So again, I don't know how much they're going to press him on the last start before the All-Star break. You know, I'd guess 60, 70 pitches maybe, and that's it. But Michael Wacha, we're going to talk a little bit more about him lately, but he is struggling mightily. 12 earned runs in the last 15 innings. And then Jack Leiter versus McCullers. Leiter continues to be super inconsistent. I just don't know what to get from him every single time out. He only went 3.2 innings with 5 hits and 2 walks allowed and 85 pitches last start. And then Lance McCullers is his third start back after an IL trip, gave up 8 and 1 earned runs in his last 2 starts. He has now walked, this is crazy, 4 guys in 3 straight starts. So he is losing his command a little bit. And then Paul Skeens versus Joe Ryan, the pitching matchup of the day here. Skeens now gone 10 straight scoreless innings over his last 2 starts. He was pulled after just 78 pitches with 10 Ks in his last start against the Mariners. Again, we might be limiting pitchers, and he might be one of them. He might not go that deep into this game as well, but he was absolutely dominating and got pulled last time. Joe Ryan, 4 of his last 5 have been quality starts. Just having a real solid season, all-star, all that. But anyways, that's what we got for page 1. Now let's move to page 2, the final 8 matchups. Logan Allen versus Shane Smith. Allen been surprisingly decent this season, giving up 3 or less earned runs in 5 straight starts. And Shane Smith, and by the way, this is game 1 of the doubleheader because they got postponed yesterday. Game 2 will be lower towards the bottom. But Shane Smith is absolutely falling apart lately, giving up an insane 5+ earned runs in 4 straight starts. Yes, you heard that right. But I will say this, the last 3 were against Arizona, the Dodgers, and in Coors Field. But still. Then we got the lefty Mitchell Parker versus the Priester. Parker continues to struggle. 10 earned runs over his last 17 innings, 6+ hits given up in 5 straight starts. Priester finally came back down to earth a little bit, gave up 4 earned runs at Miami last start. And then we got Sherlock Holmes versus Liberatore. Holmes has been solid. We know that. It's one of the bright spots of Atlanta. He has a high K rate, 28%, coming off another good start. Liberatore on a nice little run, giving up 2 or less earned runs in 4 straight. But he does have 9 walks in his last 11 innings, so something to keep in mind. And then Ryan Nelson versus Anderson. Nelson is a guy who is not being talked about, but he is pitching well. In his last 5 starts, over 29.1 innings, he has given up a total of 5 earned runs and just 17 hits. So it's been impressive. And then the lefty Anderson, been up and down. This is only going to be his second home start since June 8th, though. Ranger Suarez versus Berger. I don't know how you say it. It's probably Bergert. Suarez giving up 1 or less earned run and 5 or less hits in 5 straight. I mean, this guy has been dominating. 1.99 ERA for him, a 0.7 home runs per 9. It's been impressive. But Bergert, good for about 4 to 5 innings. He'll give up a couple runs, just pretty standard for him. He's just okay, obviously. He did have 2 5-inning shutouts versus the Brewers and Dodgers randomly, though, because it's baseball. Max Scherzer versus Severino. Scherzer only threw 71 and 72 pitches last 2 starts, giving up 2 to 3 earned runs in all 4 starts this year. And Sevy, we've talked about, guys. He is one of the worst home pitchers in the league. He's talked about it, how hard it is to pitch there. And he's also one of the best road pitchers in the league. What does that get you? A 5.3 ERA overall. And then Carrot Top versus Logan Webb. Carrot Top been up and down this season. Good to give up a few runs pretty much every start, but sometimes he shows flashes of dominance, and then other times he does the opposite. But Logan Webb, he's as consistent as it gets, giving up 3 or less earned runs in 18 of 19 starts. You know when he's on the mound, they're going to have a chance to win the game. And then we ended with game 2 of the doubleheader. Gavin Williams versus Jonathan Cannon. Williams, he had a great 1-hit shutout over 6 innings versus Detroit last start after a few rough outings, and he did have 8 Ks in that one as well. And then we ended with Jonathan Cannon, who's just been very average this year. I mean, average to a little below average, but that's all we got for the 16 matchups. All the averages are on the bottom to help you out, but it is now finally time for the best bets. All right, we start out with a hitter parlay at -120 on DraftKings. This is going to be a 1-unit play for me here. This is something, honestly, this hitter parlays that I need to get going on in the second half of the year. We got hot in the second half of last year with them, hopefully as the weather warms up, but they've just been kind of average so far this year. So let's have a nice winner here, 1-unit play. Jackson Churio, 1+ hit, and Mr. Colt Keith, 1+ hit. That's right, let's talk Chip Chip Cheerio first. He absolutely crushes lefties, by the way. He hits 356 versus lefties this season. He has 1+ hit in 18 of his last 20 games versus a lefty starter. And in fact, overall this year, he has 1+ hit in 24 of 27 games versus a lefty starter. He is heating up in July as well, hitting 324 overall. And he is facing Mr. Mitchell Parker. We just talked about it. He is one of the most hittable starting pitchers in the league right now. If you just take out the entire Rockies starting 5 rotation. But anyways, he's given up 6+ hits in 5 straight, like I mentioned. Churio, he's only had 4 at-bats off him in his career, but he is 2 for 4. Parker's been a little bit better versus righties, but he still has a 4.88 xFIP versus righties. He has given up 20 earned runs in 37.1 innings. In his last 37.1, it just has not been good. And then, of course, behind the lefty Parker is one of the worst bullpens in the league. I like Churio to stay hot. Give me a hit there. And then the second one, a guy who's kind of under the radar right now, but Colt 45. Colt Keith, 1+ hit. He moved to the leadoff spot about 3 weeks ago, in case you didn't know that. He's been absolutely crushing it in the month of July. Not just a couple games. In the month of July, he's hitting 464. One of the best in the league right now. He's a lefty, if you guys don't know that, who hits righties very well. 290 average, 495 slugging, 143 WRC plus versus righties. And he is facing a righty in Luis Castillo. Now, he is a guy that struggles on the road, like we mentioned before, like we've always mentioned. Here's what he's done on the road. How about giving up a 3.02 average against and a 4.67 ERA? Compare that to at home. He's only given up a 184 average at home because it's really hard to hit at T-Mobile Park. So this is where you want to fade, and we're kind of fading him, just getting a hit. But he's also a guy who struggles more versus lefties. 253 average, 427 slugging. He has a terrible 5.29 xFIP versus lefties. Keith, now that he's the leadoff guy, could get 5 more ABs. This guy is absolutely scorching hot. I like him to get a hit. So give me Churio and Keith 1+ hit each as my first best bet. All right, this next one takes us out to Kansas City where the Royals host the New York Mets. Mets on the money line -144, Royals on the money line +118 with a total of 9 runs. My best bet in this game is a pitcher prop. Give me Michael Wacha under 17.5 outs at -120 on DraftKings. This can be a half unit play for me here. Pitcher out props, little dicey here around the All-Star break, but Michael Wacha this season under this line in 10 of 18. So, decent hit rate, nothing crazy, but he is not in good form right now. He is struggling mightily. Seems to be wearing down a little bit. Last 3 starts, which is over 15 innings, he has given up 12 earned runs, 7 walks, and 21 hits. His whip is not pretty, as you can imagine, but he has given up a huge 8+ hits in 3 of his last 5. 8+ hits. The other reason I love the under, Royals bullpen is completely fresh here. This team had a day off yesterday with the All-Star break coming up in a few days. Why would they push the 34-year-old Wacha when you have a fresh bullpen and all that? So I think any sort of danger, I think he can be brought out. But why I like this, he's facing the New York Mets. Now, we just saw a doubleheader where both Orioles starting pitchers went 6 innings. Doubleheaders are weird. It is what it is. Congrats to them. But 8 of the prior 10 righties went under this line versus the Mets. On top of that, the Mets have seen the most pitches per plate appearance in the league. I mean, this is the hardest team to just get quick outs against because they don't swing a lot of first pitches and things like that. Not as much chase as some teams. They just work counts. They work starting pitchers. So his last start before the All-Star break, maybe they limited a little bit. We got a fresh bullpen, a tough matchup against the Mets. I just think too much has to go right for him to go 6 innings. So give me Michael Wacha under 17.5 outs as my second best bet. All right, this third one takes us out to Houston, Texas, where the Astros host the Texas Rangers. Astros moneyline -137, Rangers moneyline +113 with a total of 8 runs. And I'm going right to that total. Give me the over 8 runs at -110 on Bet365, also -114 on DraftKings right now. But this is a half unit play for me here. In my opinion, this is just too low of a total with these two starting pitchers on the mound. It's Jack Leiter versus Lance McCullers. Now, Leiter, we've talked about many times. He is super inconsistent. The floor is pretty low for him when he is bad. In fact, on the road, he doesn't do very well either. 4.58 ERA on the road with a huge 14% walk rate. And when you look at his splits, he dominates lefties, but really struggles versus righties. In fact, versus righties, 279 average with a 449 slugging, 489 xFIP with a high 1.58 whip versus righties. Why does that matter? The Rangers are probably going to have 8 of them. It's only going to be Seager that's not out there. That is not a righty, and he's obviously their best hitter. So this is just a tough matchup for him, in my opinion. And then Lance McCullers, splits for him help the over here as well. At home, 11.37 ERA in 19 innings. That is not good, guys. He's given up 8 and 4 earned runs in his last 2 home starts versus the Cubs and the White Sox. On top of that, he can't throw strikes right now. We talked about in the pitcher report, 4 walks now in 3 straight starts. And he is also a guy like Jack Leiter who struggles mightily versus righties. A 303 average and almost a 600 slugging allowed to righties. He's also given up a 424 on-base percentage. Almost half of the righties he faces get on base. 5.54 xFIP versus righties. Low 20% K rate. Sucks at home. Sucks versus righties. I think this Rangers offense gets to him. And why? Welcome back, Texas Rangers. Holy smokes, are they starting to hit the ball finally. We know they have the capability of doing it. In the last 10 games, averaging a huge 6.9 runs per game. They've scored 5+ runs in 8 of the last 10. In fact, they're coming off a series versus the Angels where they just scored 32 runs in the 3-game series. They are starting to heat up, and I think they crush McCullers here. Astros, they are swinging it pretty decent as well. Last 10 games, scored 4+ runs in 8 of the last 10. They are also averaging 6.1 runs per game in the last 10. So we have both teams averaging over 6 per game in the last 10. Houston has struggled a bit more recently at home, but again, we have a total of 8. It's not like we're asking to get a ton of runs here. And it is Jack Leiter so pretty much both these pitchers are capable of walking 4 guys each. But both have been decent rested when it comes to the bullpen. They don't scare me off and over here though. Overall, we got 2 struggling starting pitchers. Not just versus righties, but just overall in general, both facing a ton of righty bats. The Astros will also put out a ton of righty bats. Rangers lineup is smoking hot right now. Give me the over 8 runs. That is my third and final best bet for the Friday slate. Again, added plays will probably be coming. And if they are, they'll be in the pinned comments below on X and on Discord. But before we get out of here, let's check out that recap. There it is, my three best bets so far. Jackson Churio and Colt 45 and two zigzags, 1+ hit each, -120 for 1 unit. And then Michael Walker under 17.5 outs recorded, -120 for a half unit. And the over 8 in the Rangers Astros game at -110 for a half unit. Thank you for all the support this first half of the season. I really appreciate it. Again, there's no videos on weekends, and we only got 2 more days before the All-Star break, so we'll be back next week for the Friday slate. But if you haven't already, hit that like button. Would really appreciate it. But enjoy the All-Star break, the home run derby. Hopefully Cal Raleigh takes it home. But hope you have a great Friday, and we'll talk to you soon.